Mom demands I break up with my fiance and cancel my wedding because her darling daughter's boyfriend left her after she cheated on him, and I can't get married before her. So I got married without letting them know, and now they're gaining sympathy by spreading rumors that I didn't allow them to the wedding because I didn't want my sister to outshine me at the wedding. So I might have ruined my sister's reputation in the family. Let me start from the beginning. The names I mentioned here are fake. I am Lauren, 31 female, and I have an older sister, Erin, 33 female. Erin has always been the favorite of my parents. She was the classic golden child with perfect grades, perfect habits, and perfect everything else. Honestly, it was really difficult growing up in the shadow of my sister. Let me give you a few examples of what I mean. One time, we were in middle school, and I had finally scored an A on my math test. I was beyond excited. Math was my worst subject. I ran home and proudly showed my mom, expecting some praise. She just sort of glanced at it and said, "Well, it's about time. Erin never got anything lower than an A+ in math." The feeling of accomplishment completely deflated. Then there was the whole piano debacle. I'd never been all that into playing, but my parents made me take lessons, just like Erin had. I struggled through it for years, finally begging to quit. My dad's response: "Erin's never complained. If you worked as hard as she did, maybe you'd actually get good at something." I was always compared to her. When I wanted to try out for the soccer team, my mom told me that might not be a good idea because I wasn't as naturally athletic as Erin, who was the star on the track team. There was the time I spent ages working on an art project only to hear, "It's good," but Erin won her first art competition in the 3rd grade. Even stuff that had nothing to do with Erin somehow got twisted around to her greatness. I got a B+ on a history project. Dad would ask if I remembered how Erin aced her whole world history class. Honestly, sometimes I felt like my biggest accomplishment was simply not being my sister. Like my parents would probably explode if I was as polished, as pristine as Erin was. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of being a perfect, packaged set of daughters. Maybe a little rebellion was inevitable. In hindsight, I'm not surprised I dyed my hair bright purple that one year, or that I flunked out a semester of college. It was like I was subconsciously trying to get my parents to finally see me and not just some second-rate version of my sister. Well, we both grew up and started living our separate lives. The comparisons never stopped, but they definitely became fewer as I rarely visited home. Honestly, a big part of me dreaded those visits. The oohs, the ahs over Erin's latest promotion, followed by the concerned glances towards me as they asked, "So Lauren, how's that freelance writing gig going?" It was like a record on repeat, and even after 1,000 miles of distance, it still had the power to make me feel like a half-finished project compared to my sister's masterpiece. Eventually I found Jonathan, 35 male. We actually met at a coffee shop. Total cliche, I know. I was trying to wrangle a difficult client email on my laptop, and he very smoothly offered to help. Turns out, he's some kind of tech wizard. After he fixed my issue and bought me a refill, we got to talking. He was funny, easy to be around, and best of all, he didn't seem to know or care about the whole perfect Erin thing. We started dating, and it was honestly the most normal, drama-free relationship I'd ever been in. Turns out, not being compared to your sibling 24/7 is amazing for your love life. Jonathan adored my quirky side, the parts of me that my parents seemed to sigh over. Maybe to outsiders, it was nothing huge. I could experiment with funky hair colors, spend entire Sundays watching bad reality TV, or get overly invested in my houseplants. But for me, it was liberating. Things moved quickly. He fit seamlessly into my messy, creative life. Before I knew it, he was proposing on a moonlit beach, and it was the easiest yes of my life. Of course, my parents were happy for me, in their own way. At this time, my sister was also dating a guy named Brody, 37 male. I don't know exactly how they met, but he was also in finance, of course. They had been dating for 2 years now, and everything was moving at lightning speed. No surprise, when I told my parents about their engagement, they were over the moon. My mom was even dropping hints that they'd be willing to pay for it, basically throwing dollar signs at the idea of another daughter getting hitched. It was a nice gesture, but knowing my mom's taste, I started imagining a giant puffy dress and a guest list the length of a phone book. Turns out I wasn't far off. When my wedding preparation started, my mom and I started to clash a bit. See, I didn't want a big wedding. I'd always pictured something cozy and intimate, with just my closest friends and family. Something charming, low-key, maybe even a little quirky. But my mom, well, she had other plans. Suddenly, there were passionate discussions about floral arrangements I couldn't even pronounce, and guest lists featuring distant cousins I hadn't seen since I was 5. Every time we went dress shopping, she'd zero in on the princess ball gowns, the ones with enough beading to sink a ship. I'd gently steer her towards simpler styles, and she'd give me that look, the one that said, "Honey, this is your special day. Don't you want to look like a fairy tale?" It was like this battle of wills, with lace and satin as weapons. The worst was the venue debate. I'd found this adorable rustic barn that could be decorated beautifully, envisioning twinkling lights and mismatched tables. Perfect, right? "Oh," my mom had said, with a delicate sniff, "that's quaint, but don't you think you would like something more grand?" I get it. She wanted me to have the wedding of her dreams, probably the one she never got to have herself. But somewhere in the whirlwind of her enthusiasm, it felt like my own vision was getting a little lost. At that point, getting my parents to pay for the wedding was starting to feel like a disastrous decision. I love my mom, I really do, but the whole Erin would have loved this guilt trip wasn't working on me anymore. One evening, after yet another clash about napkin colors. Seriously, who knew napkins could be a battlefield? I snapped. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice even, "this wedding is about me and Jonathan, and while I appreciate you wanting to help, it needs to be the way we want it." She blinked at me, surprised. Maybe no one had stood up to her wedding planning whirlwind before. "But Lauren, I just want it to be perfect for you." "A giant ballroom and a 5-tier cake isn't my version of perfect," I shot back. "Look, if this whole paying for the wedding thing means I have to do it your way, then honestly, we don't need the help. Jonathan and I can cover it ourselves." The guilt trip came out in full force then. The sighs, the wounded looks, you know the drill. But I stuck to my guns. It wasn't easy. That little voice that always worried about disappointing my parents popped up a few times. But in the end, this was about me and Jonathan starting our life together, our way. Surprisingly, she eventually caved. It wasn't without a few pointed comments about unconventional choices and worried glances at my chosen venue, but grudgingly, she backed down. We compromised on a few things. A slightly larger guest list than I'd wanted, a touch more sparkle on my dress than felt truly me, but for the most part, the wedding started to take shape, and it actually felt like mine. I had asked Erin to be one of my bridesmaids. Honestly, I wavered on that decision for a while. A part of me resented her for always being the golden child, but another part just wanted that normal sisterly connection. So the olive branch was extended, and we wound up communicating more than usual. One afternoon, I was at Erin's sleek, modern condo to discuss potential and thankfully non-controversial themes for my bridal shower. We were sipping tea and flipping through Pinterest when Brody walked in. He seemed off immediately. There was a tightness around his eyes, a kind of forced cheer in his greeting. Before I could even process why, he exploded. Words like betrayal, lies, and a few others I definitely won't repeat here flew across the room. Erin, normally so poised and composed, looked utterly shattered. It turned out she cheated on Brody, and he just found out. The whole scene unraveled in a blur. There were tears, accusations, the works. I felt like an intruder, witnessing a raw, private moment that I had no business being a part of. A wave of awkwardness washed over me, and all I could think to do was quietly gather my things. I should probably go," I mumbled, edging towards the door. Erin barely glanced at me, her focus locked on Brody's furious face. I slipped out, my heart pounding, wondering how the heck my picture-perfect sister had messed up this badly. Even though I was seriously shocked by Erin's whole cheating debacle, trust me, the real bombshell was still to come. A few days later, my mom summoned me home with an ominous, "We need to talk" text. I walked into their house, a familiar knot of dread in my stomach, and found Erin already perched on the couch. Mom started out with the news that Brody, in no surprise to anyone, had officially dumped Erin. I awkwardly mumbled, "Sorry to hear that" to my sister, who managed a weak nod. And then, my mom landed the blow I hadn't seen coming. "Lauren, honey," she began, her voice laced with that overly concerned tone she uses when she's about to suggest something ridiculous. "Given the situation, don't you think it would be best to postpone the wedding? I mean, It's just not appropriate for the younger sister to get married before the older one. I stared at her, wondering if I was trapped in some kind of twisted sitcom. Are you kidding me? I was already getting married first. Well, yes, but Erin had plans, my mom countered. Plans to get engaged before your wedding, and now, she trailed off, gesturing vaguely towards Erin. I lost it a little then. Regardless of whatever plans she had, I'm not canceling my wedding. Are you seriously asking me to put my whole life on hold because Erin messed up? My voice was rising, fueled by a mix of anger and a strange, almost giddy disbelief. Honestly, it was a situation so ridiculous that it bordered on hilarious, if it weren't so hurtful. It was Erin's turn to chime in, tears welling up. Lauren, don't you see? Everyone's going to want to know why I'm not with anyone. What happened with Brody? Okay, hold on, I snapped back. My wedding day is supposed to be about me and Jonathan, and somehow, this is turning into the Pity Erin show? Look, I'm sorry, but the fact that you cheated on your boyfriend is kind of a bigger deal than whose wedding happens first. This was my life, my happiness. I wasn't about to let their messed up priorities or Erin's bad choices ruin it. My sister launched into a full-on dramatics, tears streaming down. Lauren, how can you be so selfish? They're paying for everything. The least you could do is wait a little while. I stared at her, incredulity battling with anger. Are you serious? Even if I agree to this insane plan, when's the new timeline, Erin? When you find the next guy, convince him you've changed, and he pumps the question, this is beyond ridiculous. I turned to my parents, expecting at least a flicker of reason from them. Look, the wedding is happening, with or without your blessing, with or without your bank account. This day isn't about making things convenient for Erin. My mom's face hardened. Well, that's your attitude. Then don't expect us to pay a single cent towards this spectacle. Fine, I retorted, fire in my belly now. I don't want your charity. I'll figure it out. The words felt surprisingly empowering, like I was finally cutting some invisible cord that had bound me for years. With that, I spun on my heel and walked out. I could hear my sister's sobs fading behind me, along with my mom's sputtering protests. I went home to Jonathan and collapsed into his arms, the tears finally spilling over. He held me, his hands gentle on my hair, and just let me sob out the whole crazy story. When I finally choked out the details, his eyes were blazing with a mix of anger and protectiveness. Lauren, that's insane, he said, his voice low. But hey, screw them. Everything will be fine. I looked up at him, my eyes still wet. You know, I don't actually care about any of it. The big wedding, the fuss. I just want to be your wife. He smiled, and it was like a warm ray of sunshine breaking through the storm. Then let's do it, he said. Why wait? The idea hit me with a jolt of crazy excitement. We decided then and there, screw the fancy wedding plans. Screw waiting for my family's approval. We'd head to the courthouse, make it official, and build our own celebration based on what actually mattered. We applied for a marriage license and amazingly, snagged a date just 2 weeks away. Those 2 weeks were a whirlwind. I found a simple white midi dress at a cute boutique and felt a million times more me than in any of the giant gowns my mom had favored. Jonathan picked out a sharp blue suit, and his goofy grin every time he called me his almost wife made my heart swell. The wedding day was nothing like I'd imagined, but somehow it was perfect. With just a few close friends as witnesses, we stood in front of a judge, exchanged heartfelt vows, and officially became husband and wife. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real, than any perfectly orchestrated wedding could ever hold. Afterward, I wasn't sure how I would break the news to my family, so I did it in the most me way possible. An Instagram post, a photo of us grinning outside the courthouse, rings gleaming, captioned simply, "Surprise, we did the thing." Needless to say, my phone exploded the second that my Instagram post went live. A mix of thrilled congratulations from friends and a few bewildered wait what messages from distant relatives, and my mom's number flashing incessantly on the screen. I steeled myself and finally answered. "Lauren, how could you?" she sputtered. No pleasantries, just straight to the outrage. "Doing this behind our backs. It's so disrespectful. This is humiliating for our family." I scoffed, a little bitterly. Well, at least now everyone has something new to gossip about. Problem solved for Erin, right? No more awkward questions about Brody. My mom's voice rose to a shriek. "You are such an ungrateful, entitled brat after everything we've done for you." "Don't eat the guilt trip today, Mom," I interrupted. my voice surprisingly steady. Actually, this is my wedding day, and I don't need any of this right now. And with that, I hung up. A wave of guilt threatened to crash over me. I mean, it's your mom, that little voice whispered, but another, stronger voice reminded me of the relief I felt, the lightness now that I wasn't burdened by their expectations. Jonathan squeezed my hand, sensing my inner conflict. "You okay?" he asked. I managed to smile. "More than okay. Today is about us, remember?" The rest of the day was a blur of joy. We celebrated with our friends at our favorite pub, toasting with cheap champagne and laughing until our sides ached. It wasn't the wedding I'd once dreamed of, but it was the wedding I needed. A day where I chose myself, my love, and my own definition of happy ever after. A few days later, the wedding glow was still lingering, but it got tarnished by an unexpected phone call. It was my cousin Sarah, who usually stayed blissfully neutral in the family drama. At first, it was genuine congratulations, but her voice shifted. "Listen, Lauren," she began hesitantly. "I didn't want to say anything, but well, your mom's been on the phone, like with everyone. She's telling them this whole story about how the reason you rushed off and got married at the courthouse was that you didn't want Erin at the wedding, that you were afraid she'd outshine you." I couldn't believe my ears. "What? Sarah, are you serious?" "Sadly, yes. I heard it from my mom, and apparently it's making the rounds to all the aunts and uncles. I'm so sorry." Fury washed over me. So, not content with making my wedding all about her drama, Mom was now actively trying to ruin my reputation within the family, publicly painting me as a jealous, petty sister. The audacity was astounding. "Who's she been telling?" I demanded, my voice tight. Sarah rattled off a list of names, and my stomach churned. All those relatives who'd always eyed me with a hint of, well, at least Erin is normal. Turns out, my mother was giving them a whole script to fuel their gossip. Seething with a mix of anger and a strange sort of satisfaction, I made a decision that might have been a little reckless. Okay, maybe a lot reckless. I scrolled through my contacts and found Brody's number. It had been weeks since that whole mess, but something told me he wouldn't exactly be thrilled with Erin right now. I hit call, and surprisingly he picked up. At first, it was awkward small talk. How was he doing? How was work? But then I dropped the bomb. I told him point blank about the ridiculous story my mom was spreading, painting Erin as the victim and me as the jealous sister. I could hear his anger rising through the phone. "Are you kidding me? After everything?" He trailed off. The pain of betrayal still raw, I imagined. That's when the idea struck, as messy and vindictive as it was. "Look, Brody," I said, "I want to make one thing perfectly clear to our families. Erin's not the innocent one here. Want to help me out?" He was hesitant at first. The idea of stirring up drama again was understandably not appealing. But then, slowly, a hint of dark humor sparked in his voice. Maybe a little payback was exactly what he needed. We met up at a neutral coffee shop, snapped a casual selfie, me with a wide grin beside a slightly stiff-looking Brody. Then I went full scorched earth on my socials. The photo blasted out with a caption that left no room for interpretation. "Even though Erin cheated on you, you and I will always be friends. #solidarity. Yeah, not exactly subtle. It took less than 30 minutes for my phone to ring. It was Erin, predictably furious. "Lauren, how could you? You're heartless. Now everyone knows everything." I kept my voice icy calm. "Maybe next time before spreading malicious lies about your sister, you'll think twice, Erin. Oh, and spreading those lies in the first place, also heartless." She sputtered, launching into a string of insults that would have made a sailor blush. But I didn't care. I let her win for too long, and so I hung up. So do you guys think that I crossed the line? Am I the a-hole for telling everyone that my sister cheated on her boyfriend? Should I have figured out some other way? Well, hold on to your hats, folks, because I wasn't kidding when I said this whole thing had more twists than a soap opera. It's only been a few days, but let me tell you, the drama train is still running full speed. After my sister's furious phone call faded into satisfying silence, she apparently took a page from the Desperation Handbook. First, she tried calling Brody, only to find herself swiftly blocked. Not one to give up easily, she then decided to pay him a surprise visit. I have no idea how the conversation went down, but it resulted in Erin telling Brody that she's pregnant and Brody making a shocking demand, a paternity test. Let that sink in. The sister who cheated is now claiming to be carrying her ex's child. You can't make this stuff up. Look, I don't know for sure what happened between them. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's a desperate ploy to win him back. Personally, given my sister's track record, I have my doubts. And frankly, Brody was right to demand that paternity test. After the betrayal, I wouldn't blame him for not trusting her an inch. On top of the pregnancy bombshell, another hit came just as hard. My mom, in a move that would have impressed any Shakespearean villain, officially disowned me. A dramatic voicemail, complete with tearful accusations and a declaration that you're no longer my daughter. I'll admit, it stung more than I wanted it to. Some part of me still craved their approval, even knowing what a toxic game it was. I tried to reason with my dad, tried reaching out to the side of him that should be, well, a father, but all I got back was a weak, "You girls need to work this out yourselves." Of course, because taking a stand and having an opinion that doesn't align with theirs was a problem for me to solve alone. The classic dad move, present in body, but absent when it actually counts. Honestly, I wasn't even surprised. Deep down, I knew this was always a possibility. I've spent my whole life as the other daughter, the imperfect one in their eyes. And now, by daring to challenge their narrative, I was the enemy. It's a bitter pill to swallow. Realizing your own parents can turn on you so completely, but amidst the hurt, there was always a strange sense of relief. Their rejection, awful as it was also incredibly freeing. It was like all those invisible strings holding me back, tying me to their expectations, were finally severed. This whole situation has made me realize something kinda twisted. All those years of worrying that Erin would outshine me, turns out she did. Just not in the way that I expected. She's got the drama, the theatrics, and a talent for creating crazy situations that could rival any reality show. While I might not have the flair for the spotlight, I'll gladly take my messy but happy life with Jonathan over whatever hot mess she's cooking any day. Some of us are destined to ride the drama, while others are just here to watch it unfold, popcorn in hand. Hey everyone, guess who's back with more family drama for your entertainment? Yep, that's me. It's been a week since my last update, and surprise surprise, the plot has thickened. Turns out, that baby bump is the real deal. I got the news from Brody himself, who texted me what could only be described as the digital equivalent of a long, tired sigh. Apparently, the paternity test confirmed it. He's the dad. As for my side of the family, well, let's just say the silent treatment is still in full effect. Erin hasn't reached out, and mom's probably still clutching her pearls and practicing her most tragic fainting spells. Honestly, at this point, it's almost comical. It takes a lot of energy to maintain that level of manufactured outrage. I have zero clue what Erin and Brody have decided regarding their surprise bundle of joy and associated drama. Brody is still mulling over what he wants apparently. Part of me feels bad for him, caught in this whirlwind he didn't sign up for. The other part, well, let's just say I'm not losing any sleep over it. You make your bed, you lie in it, and all those other wise sayings that our grandparents were fond of. Also, it looks like the family gossip mill has been working overtime. My reliable source, aka dear cousin Sarah, dropped another juicy tidbit. Somehow, the news of Erin's unexpected pregnancy has spread throughout the extended family like one of those nasty colds that go around at Christmas. And wouldn't you know it, my dear old-fashioned grandmother got wind of the whole situation. Let me tell you, the phone call between my grandmother and Erin was apparently something to behold. Grandma, bless her heart, went full fire and brimstone, laying it into Erin about betraying not only her boyfriend, but also God himself. Talk about dramatic. Now, I know I shouldn't be enjoying this even a little bit. It's petty and probably makes me as bad as my mom, but I can't help it. A tiny dark part of me feels, well, vindicated after all those years of being less than in their eyes, of being compared and criticized. It feels like the universe has finally served up a little slice of cosmic payback. And yeah, immediately after that thrill comes a wave of guilt for being so darn gleeful about my sister's misery. But hey, I'm only human. The only person I truly feel bad for in all this is Brody. Talk about getting blindsided. He definitely didn't deserve to be dragged into this mess. But then again, that's the thing about cheating, isn't it? It doesn't just hurt one person, it creates ripples, pulling in people who had nothing to do with it. Meanwhile, life with Jonathan is thankfully drama-free. We're settling into married life, figuring out who does the dishes and who's better at assembling IKEA furniture. Definitely not me. It's the kind of normal, boring in the best way kind of existence that I never dared to dream of back when I was still tangled with my family mess. Alright folks, buckle up, because it looks like we're heading towards the grand finale of this crazy family saga. And wouldn't you know it, my dear sister Erin has discovered my little Reddit therapy sessions. Yep, she found these posts, and let's just say she was not amused. Cue the furious phone call. Erin unleashed a barrage of accusations, claiming I'd not only blabbed to the entire extended family about her, situation, but was now slandering her reputation on the internet. Oh, and did I mention she threatened to sue me for defamation? Because she absolutely did. Lauren, how could you betray me like this, she wailed. These lies, the whole world knows. Okay, first, relax with the dramatics, I fired back. These aren't even our real names. Nobody knows who you are. But she was having none of it. I don't care. I'm going to make your life hell. Just you wait. Cue ominous music and an evil cackle, I assume. Seriously, sometimes she makes it hard not to laugh at the whole absurdity of it all. Now, legally, I'm pretty sure she doesn't have a leg to stand on. Defamation requires spreading provably false information, and while my account of events might be a bit sassy, it's ultimately true. Still, the mere fact that my sister is threatening to sue her newly married sibling is, well, it's peak Erin. The whole conversation left me with a strange cocktail of emotions. Part of me is still nervous. Even frivolous lawsuits can be a headache. And who wouldn't be wary of a sibling determined to unleash their wrath? But another, stronger part of me just feels tired. Tired of always being the target. Tired of Erin's theatrics. After years of bending to her will and their expectations, something inside of me is starting to say enough. Alright, I know this is a little mean, and I probably shouldn't do it. But considering Erin's probably lurking around my updates by now, consider this a message delivered straight to the source. Sorry sis, but a bunch of internet strangers who have zero clue about your real identity needed an update. And well, I'm nothing if not dedicated to my audience. So here's the latest. Brody's made his decision. He wants to be a dad to the baby, but wants absolutely nothing to do with Erin romantically. Honestly, can't blame the guy. After the stunt she pulled, trust is pretty much out of the shattered window. He actually called me, which was a bit of shock, and we talked for almost an hour about all the crazy stuff that went down. He poured his heart out, the doubts, the anger, all of it. Looks like he's gearing up for a legal battle, talking about lawyers and custody plans, and all that complicated stuff. Regardless of how that turns out, I'm betting my money on never getting to be the cool aunt. I mean, given that his baby's mom basically considers me the devil incarnate, it's not exactly a promising scenario. Also, thank you to all you random internet strangers who've been so supportive throughout my word vomit updates. You've reminded me that even when your own family is off the rails, there's kindness and understanding out there. Sometimes, knowing that you're not totally alone in your experiences is the best kind of therapy. So thank you, from the bottom of my slightly scarred, but definitely healing heart. That was it for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me, and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again, and we'll be seeing you in the next one.